Hi, Dr. Stanislaus.
Hi, Susan.
How are you? Happy 2021. We made it. Yay.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Looking forward to 2021. I'm beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccination being available.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm glad we could get together today. Last time we got together right when the vaccine was rolling out, and we were both in St. Louis. I'm now coming to you from Jefferson City, and you're in St. Louis. And we got a lot of questions after that last video that we did. I'm very thankful for that. And so I thought what we might do is continue to provide some COVID science and facts, because we continue to monitor that, and you're really on top of it. And I wanted to give just a couple of facts to everyone before we go into our 10 questions in 10 minutes. But as of today, as everybody knows, the vaccine is being rolled out nationwide and in Missouri. As of today, about 113,000 people, actually more than that, have had shots, at least the first shot. Most of those folks have been frontline healthcare workers, and many of them have been our own DMH staff. And so that's really good news that we're getting it rolled out. And before we get started, though, because, and again, my name's Susan Flanagan, and you're Dr. Stanislaus, our medical director. I am the director of disaster services, and we've entered the new year, but we haven't left stress behind. And I just wanted to remind everyone that, first of all, we thank everyone for their public service. They're doing an incredible job here for the department. But if anyone is feeling stressed or has a family member, a friend, or colleague, we encourage them to call the Show Me Hope helpline, and that is 800-985-5990. So, all right, Dr. Stanislaus, let's talk about some of the questions that have been submitted to you. Let's get started, though. I heard that you actually took the vaccine. So why don't you tell everyone about your experience?
Yes, I was one of the 2,400 DMH employees who've already, DMH residents, patients, and employees who've already taken the vaccine within the last 10 days. So I was excited to get it, and I was really grateful for the opportunity. I got mine yesterday, and it was a very simple process. I went in to St. Charles Hab Center. The nurse, I didn't even know if she came in and shot it. It didn't feel like much. I didn't even realize it was that I had the shot. And I came home. I didn't have any issues the whole day. But in the evening, I did notice that my arm was kind of sore, especially when I touched it and I moved it around. So I took a Tylenol, and this morning I was able to use my arm just as you know, I didn't have any pain or discomfort this morning.
So would it be kind of similar to getting a flu shot like we normally think of doing, the discomfort that you had?
Absolutely. It's it feels exactly like that after you get the flu shot.
Oh, okay, good. That's good to hear. You know, I know another question that people had, because yes, the vaccine's here, but people were curious as to how was it really developed? Can you kind of high level tell people about the process, timeline, science that you know can share about why we have vaccines that are available now?
Certainly. So the two vaccines that we have, which is Pfizer and Moderna, both have had emergency use authorization from the FDA. They both are messenger RNA vaccines. Now, the technology of messenger RNA has been around for a while. They just were not used for vaccine, but they had been used for treatment of rare medical conditions, where the body needs to produce a certain kind of protein in order to compensate for a deficiency in the body. The messenger RNA is the easy way. Basically, you can program the messenger RNA so it goes into the body and produces the protein that the body needs. The technology was moved to vaccines after the COVID after the COVID pandemic. So both Pfizer and Moderna use this technology. So basically, what they do is, so if I remember right, if you remember, it's like a little sun. The COVID virus is like a sun with spokes around it, and then there's a coiled up genetic material inside it. The virus itself cannot actually live by itself. It needs another human host to live. So once it gets into the body, the virus typically what it would do is it would start making the proteins that it needs, especially the genetic proteins it needs to make to survive. When you're getting the vaccine, you do not get the genetic material of the virus. You're only getting the spike protein of the virus. So it's only for the little spikes. They're just protein. They do not have any genetic material in them. And so the messenger RNA will have the code for this just spike protein that goes to the body. It produces the spike antibodies to fight the spike protein. So what does that mean? Anytime the COVID tries to come into the body, attach itself and multiply, it's able to fight it. So that is the technology behind use of these two vaccines. Now, so we have both the Moderna and the Pfizer. They have had extensive trials, even though they were not long, then they had a significant number. For example, Pfizer had this trial on about 42,000 individuals, and Moderna had it like on 30,000 individuals. Half of them received the vaccine, half of them received the placebo, and then they followed, they looked for the antibodies that he produced, made sure it was safe for administration in humans, and made sure they protected them from getting sick from the virus and contracting the virus. So that is when they got approval from they got the EUA approval from the FDA.
And you know what's interesting to me is I've talked to a couple other people that, you know, there's several pharmaceutical companies globally working on this. There's six or more really solid vaccines that are being developed. So more will be rolled out. You'll hear Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, all these different kind of pharmaceutical names. But the good news is the collaboration on this was just above anything that we've ever seen. And so with that, you know, it started with Pfizer, and we've got the Moderna. We've got both those versions, I believe, rolled out nationwide. Pfizer predominantly within our system, I think, right now. But can you explain how the process to what they call roll it out across Missouri, how does that all work?
So the way that you can get vaccination now that you have the FDA approval, the EUA FDA approval for the vaccine, it goes to the federal program. You have a federal program and a state program. So the federal program, they have contracted with Walgreens and CVS to administer directly to long-term facilities in the state across the country. So a lot of these long-term facilities have signed on to the federal program. So they get a call from CVS or Walgreens in these nursing homes, and they come in and administer the vaccine directly in the home. Now, the state also has a program, which is the vaccinator program. In order to get vaccine through the state, you have to register as a vaccinator and get a special permission from the state to administer vaccines, make sure that you fulfill all the criteria, and then they can deliver vaccines to you, which you can administer to your staff and patients. Now, that is what DMH has done in most of our facilities. We do have some of our facilities, especially the developmental disability facilities, that we do have CVS or Walgreens come and administer as well. So that is the way we can get vaccine currently in Missouri.
Well, also, I understand that they have several groups nationally and locally talked about the ethical way and through Center for Disease Control guidelines, scientifically, strategically, how they targeted the different groups to roll it out. So right now we're in phase 1A, I believe, which are frontline healthcare workers, patient-facing healthcare workers, a lot of our DMH staff. Not all of our DMH staff, but a lot of them.
That is correct, Susan. So now 1A, we are in phase 1A, meaning that the priority group to get vaccinated are long-term care nursing home patients and long-term congregate living facilities, such as the Department of Mental Health facilities, psychiatric facilities, and also all our staff who work either nursing home or provide direct care to our to the congregate living arrangements. The 1B would be those after that vaccination stops, and you move to the next level, and that is when most likely law enforcement, other doctors who continue to work with other patients and other people at risk to contract COVID who may have a serious side effect, who may have a serious outcome if contracted COVID, will be able to get the vaccine. And then it'll keep going till I think phase 3 would be for general public, which most likely will happen around spring of this year.
Right. And we will try to keep staff updated as available. I think people should check their local media source. And then there's also the, we can provide links also to websites that people can look at.
They can, but with Department of Mental Health being 1A, we are able to vaccinate our staff when they need vaccine, especially if you're working with the staff who are working with our patients. They fall under the 1A category, so they are prioritized. So that's the reason why we do get vaccines directly from the state, and we are able to give these vaccines, whereas people may realize that their spouses or neighbors or friends are not able to get the vaccine because, but we are, because we fall under the 1A category.
Yeah, because of the important work that we do. So, I mean, that's very comforting to me, and hopefully it'll be comforting to all of our colleagues that are wanting to know more about the vaccine. So, you and I both heard people talk about they have some concerns. You've gotten a couple emails about potential side effects. There's been a little bit of stuff in the literature and the news. So I'm going to ask you just about a few, and then maybe you can respond with what you know. So the first topic is Bell's palsy. And before you answer, I actually had family members that have had Bell's palsy, and they've contracted it from different ways. One is, extreme stress that they had. But anyway, explain what Bell's palsy is and if it's an issue with this vaccine.
So Bell's palsy is that when you have a little weakness of your nerve that kind of innervates your face muscles on one side, and it is usually very transient. So let's say that if you get a Bell's palsy for a very short period of time, you will find there's some weakness on the one side of the cheek or one side of the face, but they recover fairly quickly. Usually within a week or two, they recover. Now, saying that most vaccines, especially the zoster vaccine and other vaccines, have a higher rate of Bell's palsy, but with Pfizer and Moderna, I think they had 4 individuals who had Bell's palsy within that 40,000 and 30,000 individuals I stated earlier. And they got it about, I think, after the day 20 of the vaccine, and they recovered in about 5 to 7 days completely.
Oh, okay.
So it's important to know, yes, even if you do, it's a very rare side effect of the vaccine, very rare. But even if it happens, you recover from it. And that is important to know as well.
That's interesting because I know somebody who got chickenpox as an adult and also had stress and Bell's palsy, and it took a couple of months, but did come back. So and also it's not even, 4 out of 40,000 is they would say is not statistically significant. It's significant to the people it happened to. So I want to say that, but
and I also want to add,
it doesn't sound like you should be too concerned about something like that.
And I also want to add that this was just the trial period. Since the trial of these vaccines, we've had millions of individuals who have already taken the vaccine, both in the United States, Canada, and also the United Kingdom. So we are talking about several million individuals who have taken the vaccine, other than the 40,000 or the 30,000 who went through the trials. So we haven't had any more reports of Bell's palsy, but nevertheless, it was seen during the trial.
Okay, interesting. So another question I know you got is someone asked, does the vaccine cause sterility?
No, that is a complete myth. Vaccines cannot cause sterility. There is nothing in the vaccine that can interfere with your body and change its biology in any way. As I said, all it does is just produce some proteins that are the S proteins or the spike proteins, but it does not it does not cause sterility. So it's important to know that, and it is not a live vaccine because there's no genetic material of the virus in the vaccine.
Good to know. Also, and I think I'm going to understand this one in that when you were explaining, this is a completely different, it's like the high-tech version of a vaccine. It's really cutting-edge science in a good way, cutting-edge vetted science. So here's a question. If I'm allergic to eggs, which is typically how we think about flu shots, how will the vaccine impact me? What do you know about that?
So this particular vaccine has not been shown to have a negative reaction to anyone who's allergic to eggs. The reason for this is there is no egg used in growth or culture of the virus. This is a completely new technology. As I said, it's a messenger RNA technology, and it does not have any live virus or even dead virus for that matter. No live or dead virus. No viral genetic material at all in this vaccine, and so there is no contraindication to use this virus in somebody who's allergic to eggs.
Okay, good.
The only contraindications are, let's say, if you've already been had a bad reaction to another vaccine, an anaphylactic reaction to another vaccine in the past, or you've had, let's say, for a long-acting medication, you get an intramuscular medication, and you've had a serious allergic reaction. When I say like anaphylactic reaction, meaning that you needed medical intervention, those are the two times that you would refuse to take the vaccine because it's contraindicated.
Right, and I've heard that when we administer, we have epipens available in case there would be that concern with anyone.
Absolutely. So what happens in our clinics is that we have the nurse who's giving the vaccine, and every clinic in our Department of Health, we have a doctor actually standing there in the room. So yesterday,
wow, that's good service.
I had the shot, and the doctor would not let me leave for 15 minutes. There is a room where I went and sat down, and they observed me for 15 minutes before they let me leave the room. So they observe you for 15 minutes, which is what the recommendation is, because of just in case you get an anaphylactic reaction, the doctor is right there with the EpiPen and the Benadryl and anything else that's needed.
That's great. Another question, can I get COVID after getting the vaccine?
This is a very interesting question. So I had somebody that, let's say, this actually happened to a staff member. So let's say they had the vaccine on the 1st of the month. I'm just so that it's easier for me to do the math. The 1st of the month they had the vaccine, and then on the 3rd or 4th of the month they tested positive for COVID during the testing. So the fear of the staff member is, did I contract COVID from having the vaccine? You got to remember that with so much community transmission of COVID, especially around the Christmas holidays, I'm sure there was, and Easter holidays, and the New Year's celebrations, there's a lot more exposure generally in the community. We had a huge number of transmission going on, and even if you do not believe that you had engaged in any high-risk behavior, there's still a chance. So the exposure probably happened before the staff member took the vaccine. We know that the virus after exposure can take anywhere 5 to 10 days to multiply and show positive on the test or show symptoms. So for this particular staff member, the exposure happened before, and the staff member took the vaccine, and then 3 days later had COVID, which was actually, whether they had the vaccine or not, they would have still had the same risk of having had the COVID infection. So it's very important. The vaccine does not cause COVID, but because it doesn't protect you until you get your second dosage, which is 21 days later for Pfizer and 28 days later for Moderna, and plus that add another 2 weeks, another 10 days to 2 weeks to get the full antibody protection in your body, so you get full protection from COVID. So just because you got your first vaccine dosage, do not assume you're safe from COVID. You would still need to take all precautions, such as wearing your mask, social distancing, washing your hands, and do everything you're normally supposed to do, because your full protection does not start until the 95% protection does not start after 2 weeks, 10 days to 2 weeks after the second dosage.
Right. And I remember from our last conversation that you said, after the first shot, you might have like 50% protection.
Yes.
And so if people think about it, with these, it's going to take, by the time you take your first shot to where you have full protection, it's probably going to take a month and a half or 6 weeks, however you want to, 5 to 6 weeks, however you want to think about that. So
that is important. The other thing to remember is, let's say that even if you were exposed before and now you got the vaccine, the first dose of vaccine, the body does produce some antibodies during that period of time. So, for example, the staff member who tested positive 2 or 3 days after taking the vaccine and probably had the exposure before that, still will have a milder infection, and the risk of having a negative outcome from the COVID is significantly less, because the body is still producing some antibodies to fight the virus. It may not be full protection, but it's still better protection than if you did not have the vaccine. There's still some antibodies produced by the body to fight the virus. So the outcome still would be better than, let's say, the whole exposure and there's no vaccine given 3 days earlier.
Right. So, again, people are trying to decide when they can get it, where it's, how they can get it, and also if they should get it. I mean, that's a big question people have. And somebody wrote in, thinking about getting this vaccine is just as stressful as thinking about getting COVID. What would you say to one of our staff members regarding that?
Absolutely. I think it is stressful because, anytime we have to go and explore the unknown, it is stressful. No denying that. But for me personally, the stress of contracting COVID and not knowing how my body was going to react to the virus is much more stressful. For example, I have physician friends sort of the same age as me, mid-50s, and have no real predisposing conditions or comorbid conditions. They're pretty healthy. And they have contracted the virus and had to be admitted to the ICU from severe COVID-related pneumonia, and some of them one of them had to be intubated for a period of time. And when I look at that and then think about the risk, okay, if a vaccine is going to prevent me from getting sick, even if I were to contract the virus between the 6-week period I talked about earlier, at least knowing that I am not going to get so sick to the point that I would need medical intervention it makes my decision easier. And of course, it's an individual decision. Anxiety is understandable. And feel free to talk to your primary care physician if you have questions. And again, I'll be glad as a physician to answer your questions, but still the decision would be yours. And I just hope that at least by answering the questions, we can make the decision easier.
And I know, I don't know if we've mentioned this yet, because we talked a little bit before we started recording, but you actually videotaped yourself getting the vaccine. It's about a 20-minute digital recording. So we'll be posting that online too.
It's actually 20
seconds. 20 seconds. I said 20 minutes. Oh, well, gosh.
Oh my God. 20 minutes.
Maybe the next one will be 20 minutes, but 20 seconds, sorry.
20 seconds.
Yeah, you can tell us the end of the day.
Absolutely. I'll be glad to share it. I mean, and if people want to see what it really looks like when you're getting a vaccine, I'll be absolutely glad to share it.
Okay, thanks. So what if somebody has had COVID already? Should they go ahead and get the vaccine?
Absolutely. The reason for that is, let's say that I have COVID, and I probably, after COVID, we all develop antibodies. Anybody who has a COVID infection the body will develop antibodies. The question is, we do not know how much antibodies are produced after after a COVID infection. There have been individuals whose antibody production has been so minimal, and there have been individuals who've had a strong antibody production in the body, because depending on how much virus you were exposed to at the time, you turn positive. The other part of it is also, we do not know how long it lasts. So for some of them, even within a month, they've had that antibody drop off. And for some, it has lasted for 6 months or longer. So there's still an unknown. The third part of it is, we know that reinfection is happening. I have come across several staff and even patients, even within our system, where we have seen reinfection, meaning they had a COVID infection in the summer, and we didn't test them, because for 90 days we don't test individuals for COVID again. And then even after close to nearly 5 or 6 months later, they have developed symptoms, or some of them did not develop symptoms but have tested positive for COVID. So reinfection can happen, and because this particular vaccine fights the S protein, so even if it's a different kind of a different virus, often it's a viral strain, having that S protein antibodies will fight which if you get a reinfection. So actually prevent you from getting sick from a reinfection.
Yeah, no, so it's a good idea. And we've heard, it's in the news. I mean, the virus keeps morphing and changing. So, I mean, I'm glad you're staying on top of it so we can share information with everybody.
Absolutely. People have started hearing about the UK strain. So the UK strain basically means that the virus will keep changing. It keeps changing. It's like playing, playing where you keep moving the little tiles, like playing a game. So it'll keep changing its protein molecules periodically. Every 2 weeks, it'll change and make a little bit of a change in its protein molecule, because it continues to mutate. But when it makes a significant mutation,
my dog is barking. Sorry.
So if it makes a significant mutation, that's when we call it a different strain. And the strain that has come from the United Kingdom is actually much more infectious, meaning that it spreads faster. It's like the little spoke. I talked about the S protein or the spike attaching. It's like the Velcro attaching to our cells. It's able to attach much quickly and much strongly. So by that, the infectiveness, meaning that it spreads really fast from person to person, even with less contact, but it's not more, it doesn't cause a much more serious risk of infection. It's the same, the risk is the same, even with the previous strain. But nevertheless, because it spreads so fast, you're going to, and a certain number of individuals who contract the virus will get sick. In the overall number, we are going to see more sickness from COVID, but it spreads so much faster. And
I have to tell you, it's very comforting to me to know that you're on top of all of this. So I hope it's the same for everybody else. But wow, I just lob up a question, and it's like talking to an encyclopedia. It's really great.
And I want to add something else. So far, because the Pfizer vaccine is also being used in the UK. That's why they found the strain. Mm-hmm. Now they find it in several states in the United States as well. They have found that the current vaccine they do believe it is protecting against the new strain as well. That's the information as we have of now. And this is based on the United Kingdom, where they've had this new strain. Again, we need more time to really have a definitive answer, but so far what we've heard from United Kingdom is promising.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say today is January 7th. So, I mean, this information is current as of this date. The last question that we have is somebody that's had COVID already has had some lingering symptoms and wonders, will the vaccine help abate those lingering symptoms? So what do you think?
So the question is really, there are some individuals, not all, but we've seen that in our patient population within our facilities, and also several staff members who even though it's within 10 days you're no longer infective in 10 days, but there are still some symptoms that are lingering. Most common ones that linger are the loss of smell and taste. So people tell me it takes me a longer time. I still can't taste food. And it's about 3 months since I had the COVID. Some people say a month, some 2 months, some up to 3 months. They say that I'm still not able to smell. I'm still not able to taste as well. It's not as bad. It's getting better, but I'm still not able to smell and taste. And also some people say I feel more tired. I feel like I have not as much energy before I had COVID. Again, these are the long lasting symptoms of COVID infection. I mean, it does, even if it does not lead to acute shortness of breath and make you so sick to go to the ICU, it still can have lingering effects such as this, changes in sleep, changes in mood, body ache for a long period of time. So the question is, how long will it take for it to recover? It can take a while to recover. Again, each person's body is different. It's basically your immune response and how your body's reacting to the infection. But you will recover from the COVID infection. Now, by taking a vaccine, it's not going to really change the course of it. What it will prevent, or how it will help is, it'll prevent you getting reinfection, another infection, and then having to go through the whole thing again. I hope that answered that question.
Yeah, I hope it does too. And if it doesn't, I mean, people know that they can send you more questions. So,
absolutely.
Okay, so
feel free to anytime to send questions. Any questions, I'm glad to take questions. If I can answer those questions, I will. If I can research and find answers for you, I will. Or if I need to get from an expert, another expert outside of myself, I will be glad to do that. But what's important is we have a very transparent mode of communication.
Yeah, and any other tips that you want to share before we call it a day?
Absolutely. Do not let your guard down. I know the vaccine I am confident, and I'm very hopeful actually that the vaccine will protect us. It will decrease the community transmission. It'll stop you from becoming from sick, and it'll stop your family members from getting sick. You could probably, if you're vaccinated, you could, and if your family member is also vaccinated, somebody at a higher risk, let's say you have a grandmother in the nursing home who's probably by 1A and also got vaccinated, and you're vaccinated, you will be able to visit them. And not within the first 6 weeks, but after the first 6 weeks, you should be able to visit them and get back some of the routine back in. And so without that, if you don't get vaccinated, then the risk of transmission continues. And for the community to really get containment of the spread of this virus, we need at least 70% of individuals vaccinated before we can put our brakes on the spread. So, but just because you're vaccinated, please do not let your guard down. I would say wear your mask, socially distance, avoid indoor gatherings. I mean, most of the viral spread that has happened during Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's what has led to our hospital beds all being so full in Missouri and across the state and across the country. All were small family gatherings. They did not go to any big party. It was all small family gatherings. So it's very important to really pay attention to indoor family gatherings and people you meet inside closed spaces. It's important. And that's, be safe. We are there to provide that information as we learn more. And if you have questions about the vaccine, always reach out to us.
Oh, thanks, Dr. Stanislaus. You always have good advice. And I just want to remind everyone that we'll be taking these FAQs and posting them online along with the videos. And also reminding everyone to put the Show Me Hope Disaster Distress Helpline in your phone, 800-985-5990. And just a reminder to stay safe, stay healthy, and stay kind.